Welcome, folks. Today we are discussing Judith Butler's complex ideas on gender, identity, and the limitations of traditional feminist frameworks. Let's dive in.
I'm eager to hear this. Butler challenges the very foundation of what it means to be a woman, doesn't she? Can you elaborate on that initial challenge?
Absolutely. Butler questions the stability and coherence of the category woman, arguing that it's a socially constructed concept, not a naturally occurring one. She suggests that this very category, often used to unite feminists, might actually reinforce the power structures it aims to dismantle. The reification of woman as a stable identity, she argues, is contrary to feminist goals.
I see. So, the idea of a unified woman is problematic because it excludes those who don't fit the norm? How does the heterosexual matrix play into this?
Precisely. Butler argues that the stability of the category woman is heavily reliant on the heterosexual matrix. It's within this framework that gender roles and identities are defined and enforced. Those who deviate from these norms are excluded, undermining the very inclusivity feminism strives for. It's a fascinating critique.
That's a powerful point. But if we discard the notion of a stable woman, what does that mean for feminist politics? Doesn't it leave us without a common ground?
That's where Butler proposes a shift. She suggests a feminist politics that embraces the variable construction of identity, seeing it not as a problem, but as a methodological and normative prerequisite. It's about challenging the very reifications of gender and identity, rather than seeking a fixed definition of woman.
So, instead of focusing on representation of a pre-existing category of women, the focus shifts to challenging the very systems that create those categories? Is that a fair summary?
Yes, exactly. Butler questions the effectiveness of representation when the subjects being represented are themselves constructed through exclusion. She argues that focusing solely on representation can inadvertently perpetuate the very systems of domination and exclusion we're trying to fight. It's a nuanced argument, and it's easy to see why it's been so influential and also so controversial.
It's certainly thought-provoking. You mentioned the distinction between sex and gender. How does that fit into Butler's argument?
The sex-gender distinction is crucial. Butler challenges the idea that gender is simply a reflection of biological sex. She argues that gender is culturally constructed, and that this construction is not a simple, direct result of sex. Gender, she argues, is a performance, a set of repeated acts that create the illusion of a stable identity.
So, if gender is a performance, it can be performed differently? Does that mean gender is entirely fluid and volitional?
Not necessarily entirely volitional. While Butler acknowledges the performative aspect of gender, she also recognizes the powerful social forces that shape and constrain those performances. It's not simply a matter of choice. It's about navigating a complex field of power relations. It's a more nuanced understanding of agency than a simple free will versus determinism dichotomy.
I see. And what about the concept of the body in all this? Is it a passive recipient of cultural meanings, or does it play a more active role?
Butler challenges the idea of the body as a passive vessel. She argues that the body itself is a construction, shaped by and inseparable from the cultural meanings it assumes. The body doesn't exist independently of gender. It comes into being through the very marks of gender. This is a radical departure from traditional views that see the body as a pre-existing entity onto which gender is imposed.
That's a really challenging idea. It seems to blur the lines between the biological and the social in a way that's difficult to grasp. How does Butler address the seemingly intractable nature of the binary, the unitary, and the complexities beyond?
Butler acknowledges the complexities and the seemingly intractable nature of the binary. She critiques the tendency to view gender as a simple binary opposition, male-female, and highlights the limitations of such a framework. She also addresses the challenges of achieving unity within feminist movements, arguing that the pursuit of a singular unified identity can be counterproductive, leading to exclusion and silencing of diverse voices. She advocates for a more fluid and inclusive approach, one that embraces difference and acknowledges the inherent contradictions within feminist thought.
So, in essence, Butler's work calls for a radical rethinking of identity, gender, and the very foundations of feminist politics. It's a call to move beyond fixed categories and embrace the complexities of lived experience, right?
Exactly. Butler's work is a powerful critique of traditional notions of identity and a call for a more nuanced and inclusive approach to feminist theory and practice. It's a challenging but ultimately rewarding body of work that continues to shape discussions on gender and identity today. Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Goodbye.